Hello, hello, hello. Listen, the conversations on the Got Value podcast have been transformational, if for nobody else, for me. And, I'm going to be grateful for that. Although I would be remiss if I did not say thank you to today's guest, because this particular subject and the questions and the conversation that we're going to have today, this one is, this one's personal, right? This one is for me, and I'm just going to be gifting and sharing this with you guys. But Jasmin, thank you so much for joining us on the Dot Value podcast. How are you feeling?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me. I'm excited about this conversation. I always get excited to talk about rest and the things. So thank you.
Absolutely. I feel as though it's something that, especially as you are looking to excel and progress, in your career and honestly in life, that there was this saying, not even a long time ago, where it was, team no sleep, I'll sleep when I die. And it's like, I don't understand. I don't know nothing about my life.
Right. I never did.
I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all. But it does take a resolute, spirit to be willing to say, that don't work for me.
Right. Yeah, it does. And the thing is I've always been probably countercultural with a lot of things. So it wasn't anything new for me. I'm just like, I've never been the popular kid, never been like the popular, go with the flow. I've always been a little different. So it was okay for me, when everyone was, really celebrating that. And some people can live in that vein. Because I had a baby earlier in my adulthood, that had never been, it couldn't be my story. I needed to go to sleep and rest.
Yes, it is definitely a form of torture. It's one of the things when I had a newborn, it was pertinent for me. And I know there are a lot of people who say, you shouldn't sleep train, you scar them for life and all these other things. And my response would always be, well, what happens if I'm scarred and then I'm messing them up, when they cognitively can understand what is happening to them because I've had no rest.
That's right. Yeah, my newborn is sleep training right now. Matter of fact, okay. He is in the crib. My husband just put him in there at 9:30. So we're in the midst of all of those things. So
yeah, I mean, and it is really a challenge. But I tell people, do what works for you, because just like you, like I've been a rebel. I have always been a rebel. If everybody is doing it, I'm the one in the corner who's just like, I'll be good now.
Exactly. And the thing was for me in that whole rebel mind state was, I started as a career coach in my business, and it was so much focused on work, your accomplishments, how you can be productive, like all the things. It was just, we were churning and burning. And then it just dawned on me. I was like, a lot of the women that I speak to literally have no clarity because they're so busy and they're wore out. They're exhausted. And so I was thinking to myself, like, what is the biggest difference between myself and a lot of, the folks I talk to is I definitely take time to rest, and I say no a lot to things, So I was really focusing on that, and it was making a lot of my sessions, or a lot of the times that I had workshops with clients, it felt like therapy, which I was glad it was therapeutic, but I'm not a therapist, right? So I couldn't really give them what they needed. And I was like, what? I need to pivot. I need to really speak to the audience that I'm supporting in a way that makes sense, so they can go to another career coach or wherever they need to go to really get that finite solution. So here we are today.
Ooh, that's so good. Primarily because I speak a lot too about being clear. When you're not clear, it's literally like looking in glasses that have a lot of fog on them. The glasses themselves, especially if they're prescription, they really can help to clarify your vision. But if you have the fog on them or the haze, I don't care how powerful the glasses are, you've incapacitated them. You've rendered them inoperable.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I already know it's going to be so good. So here's the thing. And I always like to begin every conversation having folks define who they are, because too many times I absolutely could read your bio and do all the things, but knowing like who you are and then being confident in whomever that is, it informs your choices. Hands down, it determines what you go after, what you believe about yourself. So who do you say you are?
Yes, I am a Black woman that prioritizes family, rest, and all beautiful things. Like, that is literally how I define myself. Yeah. And I think I'm a whimsical woman too. So,
whimsical. What does that mean? Like, what does it mean?
Yes. So I love this question because, I'm coming up on 40. So I've been doing a lot of, yes, girl. I've been doing a lot of like introspective work and defining things for myself, defining myself for myself, for my daughter. And whimsical, really, I think it goes with that kind of that countercultural type of thing. Like, I like to embody all things. Like, I feel like there's a avatar for Black women, and people put us in a box or have a profile for us. But everything that is outside of that box and in that box is Jasmin. And so to me, that gives me a level of whimsy. Like, I'm just whimsical.
I like that. I'm deciding who and what I'll be, how I want to feel, and I'm making the decisions that align with that.
Okay, sorry.
Oh, I love that. I love that a lot. Yeah. So then you were saying earlier about who you are, and who that is and what that means. And then, so for me, I always ask people, what does your life's mission look like? What does it look like? Who is it? Who are you? Like, how does that, show up in the world for yourself first and then for others? So what would you say that your life's mission is if you had to like put it in one sentence?
To relish and rest. And when you relish in something, it's to get full and complete enjoyment. And because I understand the stories of my mother, my grandmother, her mother, they never got the chance to enjoy rest, right? They were working in other homes. They were working 2 and 3 jobs. I have the privilege to work one job. And honestly, if I wanted to stop working this one, I could. But to be able to relish and rest, that is the sentence, the mission of my life.
To relish and rest. I always say, my ancestors, they put in a whole lot of work so that I could experience enjoyment.
Okay. We owe it to them to do exactly that. So, hey, they paid it in full. So I definitely wanted to honor them by doing that.
Yeah, because it's crazy. We haven't been taught to honor ourselves and our needs. I remember when I was growing up, it was, children should be seen and not heard. You should, whatever the adult asks you to do, you do it, no questions asked. You don't do any talk back or feedback. And that rebel in me was like, that don't make any sense. So if I'm in pain over here, I'm just supposed to. My mom used to have us stay and cry quietly, and I would tell her, no, that's cruel and unusual punishment. I'm not doing that. If I'm in pain, I'm going to cry loudly.
Right. Exactly. I was the same. Listen, I was the same, Alechia. I think it drove my mom crazy, though, because I was so against the grain. Like, I'm thinking, I have something to say, of course, respectfully, but even speaking up was like disrespect, right? So it was like, no matter if I was wild with my message or if I was very, respectful, it was all seen as disrespect. So I was like, well, might as well say what I need to, or express, the tears or whatever it is, and we'll go from there. But yeah, that caused a true. My mom says I was selfish for that reason.
Yes, my mother. She just said, I don't understand you. I don't understand you. You just want to cause trouble. Don't you just want things to be easy for you? And I would just be like, not if it means it has to come at my expense.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
nah, I'm gonna open my mouth. I'm gonna say if I don't like something. I'm gonna let you know if I don't agree. And it's funny, I have an 11-year-old daughter, and she is exact way.
Look at that.
She makes her needs known, and it makes me feel so good because at 11, she'll say, I don't like the way this makes me feel. Can we do something different? I really don't like this. No, please. And she'll say the please, but it's still a no.
Yes, it's still a no. I love that. My daughter is the same. And just look at that, right? Like we are retraining, relearning. So the seeds of our room can go on and just do it a little bit better. And I love that. I love that because my daughter, she's 17. She's getting ready, to go off to college. And, seeing her say, but no, thank you. She'll say, but no, thank you. Okay. I respect that. Like she definitely has a zone of genius, a voice, what she wants, what she doesn't, and she sits in that. I'm like, okay, I might be uncomfortable as your mom, and I'm not going to show it, but in my gut, I'm like, ooh, like I'm trying to push down what my mother's response would be, right? Because sometimes your mom comes out and your response is like, oh shoot, that was my mom. Okay, let me not.
Yeah, come back.
Yes. So I get that. I get that a lot. Yes.
And how have you taught others to honor themselves and then to communicate their needs too, especially when you are looking to excel professionally? Because many times you feel as though, well, I can't say no. I have to accept this project, even if it's outside of my scope. And sometimes, yes, you want to accept projects to broaden, your skill set, your access, your opportunities, the whole nine yards. But sometimes you're just like, this ain't it. How do you honor yourself in that regard?
Yes, I think it's going back to probably everything that you stand in too, is that clarity. When you ask me to define myself, right, that very definition is the baseline for everything I do. If I prioritize family and rest, and this project does not fit within that scope, guess what? I cannot do it, and because now I'm very clear on my values and I'm unapologetic about it because I've learned conversely in the past, when you say yes to all the things, you're all over the place and then you're resentful. It's like, yes, I have this project and now people know me, but I resent it now and I don't even want to do the work anymore. And now I'm in an arena with folks that I probably shouldn't even be in because we may not value the same things because they asked me to do this project on a Saturday at 8 a.m. when I know I needed to be at my son's basketball game. Right. So it was like one of those things where it was up to me to define what I needed, what my priority was. And once I did that, I could then align the projects, the people, the access, the audience. And anytime you make a definitive statement, the universe aligns. So it wasn't like I was making up anything. I stopped thinking that if I said no, that it means there's a lack. Actually, when I said no, there was an abundance elsewhere that aligned with what I needed. So I continually just fine tune that because as I do that, the things that I want to do show up and they show up so mightily that I'm like, well, shoot, why I didn't do this before? Why didn't I do this before? And it's funny that way, but that's life. And also the experience of just the doing, right? Because if I didn't do, if I didn't just have the experience, or if I was afraid, I wouldn't be here. So that's the one way that I show people on how to honor themselves and communicate is through my own story and understanding that I'm not telling you what I think, I'm telling you what I know and what I'm doing. And I think that helps a lot in that space.
So now when you were just saying, and again, it goes back to that clarity, honor what works for you and be clear on if the project is going to take you away from what is most important for you. It is okay to, say no, or even I'm a firm believer in what does it look like for me to say, okay, I'm not available during these times. So if this project will require me to show up every week or every, month at this time, this isn't something I can do. But then to offer an alternative, right? Like, what does offering an alternative look like? And then two, just saying, I would really, really love to, but I won't, or I don't believe I'd be able to give the project my best at this time. So can we circle back in the future? Like, what does it look like to ask a question like that and not be afraid that it means that you'll be blackballed? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Because some people, they won't make a move because they're like, well, I will be blackballed, or well, I won't get, any more opportunities, as if the well of opportunities will just dry up because you have introduced a boundary.
Yeah, that's a great one, because I think that was a hurdle for me too, right? So I believe those statements are necessary, like giving the boundary and then giving an alternative solution or an alternative availability for the project or whatever the thing may be. If they want you, they will make the concession. That's how I feel, right? And even as a business owner and a 9-to-5er, that's just been my thing. Like, when people want you in any relationship, honestly, if someone wants you, they are going to make the concession. They are going to meet you at your point of need, whatever it is. And feeling like if I say this, and I'll be blackballed, then honestly, I'm just saying that it wasn't meant for me to be there anyways, because I like to align myself with authentic people that are just human. They have like basic human nature and genuine just care and kindness for others. And so if someone is that hard up to get a project done or to do business, that is not a value of mine in business as a person, as a professional. And so I bid you all the blessings and farewell. We are not aligned, and I'm okay with that. And it took a lot of, I would say, grace and patience and maturity to get here, but here I am. And so I just tell people that if you have that statement, make that statement. Make it declarative or make it as soft as you need, but make that statement. And then, of course, when the person gets it, they'll be like, okay, but I really want this person. How can I meet your need? Like, how can we negotiate, right? Because you're either negotiating salary, negotiating time, negotiating all the things, as a professional. This is a negotiation sometimes. But if there isn't a negotiation for you, that's okay. The right opportunity or the right partnership will show up. And it sounds woo-woo and hocus pocus, but I promise you, it's just something in the vein of speaking things forth and doing the work that it really does make itself known and show up for you the best way it needs to for your life.
Yeah, if we had to give a topic, yes, the conversation is called Redefining Rest and Success, but I think we should, let's give a little asterisk and redefining rest and clarity, because it literally all goes back to, are you clear? Are you clear? And you literally just said it, in that if the person is not going to want you at all anymore, that opportunity is now gone because you have introduced a boundary, or because you have said what aligns better with who you are, and that's just something that they cannot do, then do you really want to be a part of that? Like, gone are the days where we are martyring ourselves for $1. Like, we ain't doing that no more. It is finished. Like you said, we're going to bid it adieu. Thank you. I wish you nothing but good success. And now I gotta go. I'll take a selfie on the way out if I need to, but I gotta go, because it truly is. And this is where, like you were saying, like doing that internal work, it is a skill to be able to see opportunities where there are very real obstacles. Like, I'm not one of the ones who are going to say, oh no, there's no obstacle that ever exists they do not exist. No, there's some real obstacles, capital O. However, it's a skill to be able to see when this obstacle is really just dressed up. It's in wolf's clothing instead of being in sheep's clothing. It's in wolf's clothing. And what it really is an opportunity. It's just a little confused. You got to massage it a little bit, polish it up, clean the fog out your glasses. You'll see the opportunity. But what are some of the ways that you personally have been able to recognize an opportunity in your obstacles? And then what are some tips that, and this, again, y'all, this one's for me. What are some tips that others can use to do the same?
I think that the biggest one in terms of identifying the obstacles that I've been met with in the solutions that I found was first, I had to recognize what burnout was and exhaustion, right? Because if you're listening to this and you follow Alechia, you are probably an overachiever, a high achiever, doing a lot of things, which I love, okay? Because I follow her too. And we are we're in the same family then. So I'm speaking to you on that. I didn't recognize that all the doing that I was doing was burning me out, right? I was being I was being used up. I was pouring out, which I love to do. Honestly, innately, that is me. I love to pour into people, and I love to really support and build spaces and people that go on to do good things, better things. But it's a lot, closed my door and I was crying and I was shaking and I had to go to a meeting. It was like this boardroom with all these folks. And I was like, why? Literally in my mind, I was thinking, why am I crying? Why am I feeling so anxious? And it was literally my body saying, no, you need to rest. And I was like, oh, okay, how did we get here? So I took a sabbatical. I went to an IOP, which is an intensive outpatient program with a mental health institution here in Greater Metro Atlanta, Georgia. And I did the work. I had to understand the steps of burnout. There's eight stages of burnout. No, 4 stages of burnout, but there's like 8 little bullet points underneath. And literally, I was checking off all of them. And I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't recognize this because I was in the high. I was in the high of doing. And when you're high, whether it's like like if you're drinking wine or you do other self-medicating things, you understand at the high, you don't feel what's really going on in your body. When you come down and you crash, you're like, whoa, okay. So you were hurting your body the whole time you were up here performing. And I came down, that day going into that board meeting, I was buttoned up, had my favorite Sam Edelman shoes on, and I was about to just, go in and slay, okay? My afro was popping, like everything was on point, except I was exhausted. And so once I recognized that, I really had to change the course of everything in my life. And I think that's why I'm here today in this new vein of defining who I am for myself so I can tell others, because I can't have anyone tell me who I am. And that's what was going on. There's a lot of people telling me that I need you to do this. I need you to, and I was taking it in because ego, I'm going to be honest, ego. I had to step outside of ego and I had to just be Jasmin. So learning how to be a human being, not a human doing, has changed the course of how I rest. And I recognize when I'm exhausted. And I'm grateful for that because honestly, I was treating my body, this vessel is necessary for me to be here. I can't treat it as an option. So I have to put that first. And doing that, subsequently, all the things that align with what I need now show up in a way that allows me to be a mother, a wife, a really great friend. Like I'm probably the best friend to my friends now than I've ever been in life because of this rest and this healing that I've done. And I would say the first thing is to really just assess that for yourself. And then the solutions will come because you understand there are seven components of rest that we all need to understand so we can be fully rested. I'd like to say there's an eight. Component, just because as a Black person in America, there's another nuance to that. So, understanding that really helps.
Listen, yes, it is. It is different. And especially even to being a woman, because you have to be sometimes in such a heightened state, especially depending on what time you're going out. There are certain things, like there are certain responses you can't have towards the opposite sex, because they don't always respond well. Unfortunately, in America, actually, no, around the globe, we have not done a very good job of teaching men that they don't own people who aren't their children. And even then, you don't own your children. You are a guide. They're not cattle. They're not slaves. So I would love to find out, because like you, because, high performers, when I was going to a particular therapist, she had said, you have high functioning depression. The sadder you get, the more you produce. She said, you don't know how to be depressed and get sad and be in pajamas all day. She said, you get depressed and you go and you build the whole business. She's like, you monetize it, you make it profitable. She's like, you do all the things until you crash. And then once you've crashed, the goodness that everyone was hoping to get, they don't even get, because you haven't assessed where you are, what it looks like. So I created what I call leader alarms. And anytime I do workshops with executives, not that emerging professionals can't utilize it, because they can, but specifically with high performers and executives, I call them leader alarms, where you identify what is yellow for you, what is orange for you, and what is red for you. The reason I don't touch on green is because high performers, executing is all you know how to do. You excel at that. And so when you identify, what does it look like when I'm first starting to feel burnt out, or when I'm first starting to feel or get to the point to where exhaustion is here? And what is orange, where I'm about to break, like I'm dropping the balls, some of them plastic, some of them glass, but they getting dropped. We figuring it out. And then what's your default? Like knowing what you default to can help you determine, okay, where am I? Where am I on this spectrum? And then creating an alternative to where if I say I'm on orange, I can tell a particular friend, like, hey, I'm really feeling like I'm on orange. And that friend will say, hey, come down to Miami. I already have a room ready for you. You can just rest. I don't have to show up for anybody. We won't tell anybody I'm there. I will just rest. We'll order in some food, because ain't nobody finna be cooking as much as I love it. You gotta rest. And knowing that helps you to come off the bridge, because once you're at red, you're over the cliff, and it's not impossible to come back, because many people have come back. But who knows what you destroy once you've gotten to that red? And I'm talking about what you destroy in yourself. It's not about others right now. This one's about you. And so you talked about the 7, but you believe 8 components of rest. I would love to know, what are those?
Yeah, so the 7 components of rest, and it's much like what you talk about, or the framework that you give the executives that you work with, right? So I have a group, a support group. I wrote a book and all the things, but it's really the framework behind the rest that we need as professional Black women specifically, but high-performing professionals overall. The first one is social rest. The second one is spiritual rest. Third is physical. The fourth is creative. The fifth is, what am I trying to say? Sensory rest. The sixth is, oh my goodness, I should have wrote this down on a list, because I talk about this all the time. Emotional. And the seventh is, oh my goodness, I can't remember the seventh, but the eighth is cultural. And that is the one that I talk about specifically for my audience. Because we do a lot of code switching or killing one part of us to be in a space to show up one way, and that's exhausting. So we work on a lot of, in those different buckets, you understand basically that rest is a yin and a yang. So for example, if I show up in a space where there's a lot of talking and there's a lot of visual things going on, that's the sensory part, right? So if I have a lot of that going on, I now understand that when I'm trying to rest that aspect of myself, what is one thing that calms my senses? For me, I paint. That calms my senses. That really gives my sensory body a chance to relax versus talking, listening, seeing all the PowerPoints, all the things. So it's not just enough for me to just sleep, or it's not just enough for me to sit down and be quiet. I have to recognize in each body where it's spiritual, emotional, mental. That was the seventh one, mental. There we go. I knew it would come up once I start talking because I talk about this so often. When you identify through your work day, work week, work month, what you deplete most of in yourself, that's where you need to align and pour back into. And I learned all of this through my therapist, my IOP, but I also read a book called Sacred Rest by Dr. Dalton Smith. Life-changing, game-altering, all the things. And so it's really the cornerstone of a lot of my workshops and the work that I do to help us balance and be rested so we can be successful and have that clarity.
Ooh, that was that right there. Those are some vital tools that we can use, because imagine the heights that you will reach when you do understand that, okay, my sensors and my senses have been activated. I need to, okay, what does it look like to deactivate them? Or with some folks having to code switch or not feeling like they can be who they are, which honestly is a disservice to all parties involved. I know there are organizations who want you to come in and acclimate and do all the things, and it's like, you're paying for, to have this person's skill and their gifting, but you're not even getting it because you are requiring them to be someone else. Do you know how hard it is to act all day? Even Denzel say he is a method actor, so he becomes the character, but once he finishes acting as the character, he has to go and detox to get that character out of him, because you can't be something else all the time and still be and have the gift that you have. That's not how it works. It's not how it works. But you mentioned something about sleep in there, and I'm a firm believer, and I know we were speaking about it earlier, that sleep and rest are not synonymous. It is not the same thing. Like, I think I slept last night for about 7 hours, but I was thinking the entire time, so there was no rest to be had. And there are some very real studies, because my partner doesn't sleep at all. It is the hardest thing. We're trying to get him in some studies. But so I've been doing a lot of research on like sleep deprivation, and it significantly impairs like a range of like cognitive and those brain functions, from impacting our ability to process emotions. And then also, of course, it increases, that volatility, because if you can't process them, you get real, you kind of like a cobra. You start striking when there's no need to strike. It helps us, it kind of it's a negative when it comes to assisting us in managing like our irritability and then our anxiety. And then it also helps to, decreases our sex drive. Like, that's a beautiful part of adulthood. And not getting sleep, it affects that. So what is the difference between the two? And then how do we, I know you touched on it a little bit, but what are some of the ways that we can absolutely ensure that we get rest and not just sleep on a more consistent basis?
That is a great question. And, you know, it comes up quite a bit, you know, because this is a lot of a lot of our challenges, just as humans, whether high performing or not, especially after being cooped up in the house this past almost 2 years, right? So you're getting all this information. Your thoughts are probably all over the place. You're afraid, you're anxious. Now you're depressed. You're trying to figure things out, and you're going to sleep, but you wake up and you're still tired. And I remember even for myself, like years ago, when I was dealing with anxiety and depression, I would go to bed at like 8:30, wake up at 7. That's almost 11 hours of sleep, but I was still in my face. I looked haggard. I was tired. And it's like, why is that? Well, understanding that sleep is just biological to humans. Like we're going to go to sleep. If you're not altering like your clock, right? If you're not taking some type of performance enhancing drug or some type of self-medicating, you know, substance that's keeping you up, your body is going to just sleep. It's going to fall out. So it's biology. Rest itself is one of those things that is cognitively, I would say, almost intention. It's a cognitive intention for humans now to understand that in order to get sleep, rest comes first. It's not the other way around. A lot of people think that when I sleep, I'll be rested. But no, actually, you have to be rested to get sleep. And I talk through in my support group, in a lot of my workshops, we talk about how to get the rest, right? So first, we understand where we're being depleted in the day, right? Those 8 bodies. Well, there's 7 bodies, but 8 if you're a person of color in mainstream, right? You probably want to fill that cultural cup back up for yourself. So after we understand that, we then identify our rest deficits. Identifying your rest deficits allows you to create a strategic plan or supports or rest practices that pour back into you so that when you sit down at whatever time of day is your normal sleep time, your brain is now calming down and it's rested. And it's like, okay, I'm not thinking now. I can rest. And when my body is ready to turn down for sleep and it goes down for sleep, my body is sleeping, but my mind is rested. And a lot of those rest practices are different for everybody, just like our personalities. And you take those tests and you find out you're an extrovert and an ENTJ and all that. It's the same thing with rest practices. So for me, making tea is a calming practice. I drink a lot of tea because there's certain calming alphas that are activated in our brain when you boil the water. You have to be patient. When you pour the boiling water into a cup, and you have to seep out the ingredients, you're waiting for that. And in those moments, I'm like, okay, thinking about my day and taking it in. I might be journaling. I used to hate to journal, but I understand now for my rest practices how therapeutic it is because I talk a lot. Now I'm not talking, I'm transcribing on paper. And so that was like the opposite effect for me. Even with making tea, I used to drink a lot of wine. You know, that was self-medicating. So I thought it was helping me sleep, which it was, but it wasn't helping me with my rest. Now my body, my liver is still working. The insides of my body are doing different things versus when I'm drinking tea, which is whether it's herbal or oolong or black tea. The whole practice of making tea is a calming alpha to our brain and is setting ourselves up for a relaxing, whatever it is, time and space after you make that cup of tea. So that's one of the things that I do as a rest practice, making tea and journal. And then once I'm sitting there, I also, you know, I do a lot of meditation. I'm a meditation coach and a yogi. Did all the courses and classes to become that. I have I would say a better understanding of how these things work together than the average person. But learning that really helped my rest practices. And so I would offer up to other folks is to first understand your rest deficit, right? Understand where you have the opportunity to be more rested. So then you can make a solution for the rest. And after you get the rest comes the sleep.
Listen, I had never thought of it. This is why I had to speak with you. I had never thought of it like that, in that rest precedes sleep. It's something I never thought of. So then would you say, because like many are on a hamster wheel where it's the default is to, neglect rest. I think I might be there, but that's okay because I'm learning now. To neglect rest, in the name of becoming a success or in the name of securing that promotion or the opportunity. But how do you get off the hamster wheel to better define and align what you truly do value?
Well, listen, if you don't do it, your body will. That's what I'll first say, okay? But you neglect, the body will be like, hold up, it happened to me. So like I was saying, in that moment when I was just like kind of shaking and crying, my body was like, girl, we ain't going nowhere until you take care of this vessel. The main thing I would say is, if you don't listen to your body, it's gonna scream out to you. The second thing is, which I loved how you talked about like the red and the orange and like kind of leading up to the red, and you never want to get there, but if you do, understanding that you can come back, whatever that takes, you can come back. But ultimately, I just believe that you will crash and burn, and I don't want that for folks. I want people to be able to assess it beforehand, which is why I talk about rest deficits. But all in all, when you start feeling like you're not yourself, you'll start feeling like you're not yourself. Other people, because we all have like a discerning button in our gut. When you show up and people aren't receiving you a certain way, you're like, wait, did I say it like that? Or you start missing the marking spaces. And we don't want to do that just for ourselves. We don't want to show up in spaces where we're trying to pour into others, or we're teaching, or we're just being a support to someone else. You don't want to show up tired and unbalanced, because it comes out and people see it, like they can discern it. And so I really honestly just think that slowing down and assessing myself each day is how, that's what I would offer to other people, like literally slow down. I know you want to say yes to all the things, but define you for you. Does it fit within your values? If it does not, be okay to have those boundary statements that we were talking about earlier on. And once those boundary statements start to come forth from you, you get comfortable. It's like when a baby first learns to talk, right? It's a little wonky and it's not comfortable. But then, they get their vocal cords together. They're stronger. Any muscle that you use over and over gets stronger. And this is one of those muscles that you'll have to get stronger in, that saying no or getting those boundaries. And then not only that, people start to recognize that for you. Like even for me, people know me as the rest queen, right? So they're like, I know you're resting, Jasmin, but let me know when you can. And I'm like, yes, come on, God. Like
that's the email I sent you. I know you are at rest and I honor that. But that's so crazy to me that literally, if you make it so that this is what you're known for, people will honor that without you having to constantly enforce it, because it's what you're known for. It didn't make me think you were any less valuable. It didn't make me think you were any less equipped or any less amazing. If anything, I was just like, oh, this is it. This is the one. Like, still smart, still brilliant, still successful, still gorgeous, still an amazing mom. And also, not the and also is going to ensure that she gets her rest and requires that others honor what she honors most. I'm a fan. I love it.
I appreciate you because honestly, look, it aligns me with women like you who have the same values. And now speaking to an audience that is looking to have those same values. And once you do that, you create community. The community gets bigger. People are saying the same message. And now those opportunities that you thought you lost are more abundant because it's a bigger, broader scope and we're all speaking the same language. Or when we are speaking that language, it's translated to the people that understand it, and the people that don't go someplace else. And that's beautiful.
What you say, you bid them adieu. We take our selfie on the way out. Love you, mean it. I love it. As we're closing down this conversation, it has been so soul enriching. I am going to get some rest after this, because I've been doing all the things. But I wanted to find out, I'm a firm believer in you should absolutely utilize learning and development. If the only thing you're getting from your job is a paycheck, you're not getting paid very much. I don't care how big or how many, zeros or decimal points that you're getting. So for me, I firmly believe that when you agree to work for a job, that is a mutually beneficial contract that says, yes, they will pay you and you will give them time, energy, and resources, but they will also give you money, and whether or not it's written, opportunities to learn, right? And you get to be the person who defines what that is. And so what do you believe is like the best way, for women and for men too, because, we don't want to leave them out, but primarily for women. Sorry guys, y'all will be on the next one. The best way, to leverage, their own value and skills, but to leverage that learning and development opportunity to excel in careers. Understanding too that learning and development could be getting a rest coach, or it could be, getting a certification in meditation to help you better align with yourself so you can be a better leader. So like, how do you think, or what's the best way to even approach that subject in your organization?
That is awesome. And again, going back to just my experience, because it's work, it was understanding, well, learning and development is to pour into you, right? To make you a better person, a better professional, and just holistically adding value, right? And when I think about adding value, it's what is missing? What do I need? What are the components that I can ask for to pour back into? And that was the reason why I did get the certification in meditation and become a yogi, because I was running amok. I was toiling. I was everywhere. I was anxious. I was And so doing the assessment for self was like, okay, what is the bill of goods that I need? Okay, because I can perform, I can speak, I can show up, do a workshop, I can teach, but I don't know how to be still. I don't know how to be present. I don't know how to be mindful. I don't know how to speak kindly to myself. I'm always beating myself up. What on the other side of that will help me build that muscle? And that's how I basically build out a learning and development plan for myself and then anybody on my team, whether it's, performance management issues or just a learning and development perspective as well. Where are we looking? What is our goal? And things are still goal oriented, even through rest, right? Like what you don't measure, you don't do. So I had to measure this for myself. What does it mean for me to be rested? What does it mean for me to be in tune and still be present, still be productive, but to be myself? And so I would offer that to folks to again, understand those opportunities for yourself, like the missing pieces. Like if there's a hole right here, what would help fill that hole? And what would make that muscle stronger for you? And then you can go to your employer and look at the offerings that they have, because a lot of employers do have like a library of offerings, or you do the research yourself and like, I need this program, and submit it or present it to whoever your leader is or whoever approves, those RFPs, and get it done, and say, okay, in 30, 60, 90, or in 6 months to a year, this is what I'm hoping to accomplish. Because we don't want to just say, I want. We want to say, I want, and this is what I hope to accomplish, or this would be the ROI after getting that type of development or that learning. And so that's how I've approached it for myself, and I've seen it work for others, and that's how I do it for folks on my team as well.
That is so good, especially the whole, and this is where personal accountability comes in. I always cringe when people say, well, they didn't provide any opportunities for me to grow. And my first response, and it is not the one that folks like to hear, is what opportunities did you bring to them that would help you to grow? Because they're busy just like you are. You're one of one. For them is sometimes 10 to 1. So they've got 10 heads that they're responsible for. You're only thinking about you. What does it look like to come to them and bring to them, hey, so this is where and how I would like to grow within the organization. This is a role that I'm looking at that I would like to feel it really aligns with not only my values, but with these initiatives that the company is looking to expand and explore in. What are some of the areas that you believe I might need to grow in so that I can be best suited for this opportunity? Like, it's what I did when I said, okay, I don't want to be on the phones no more. This is not the life for me. I am traumatized. To this day, I don't like sitting on the phone because I worked for a telephone company. Then I worked as an online student advisor, and it was always talking to people. And people think I'm an extrovert, and I'm really not. I am very introverted. When I'm on the stage, I'm live and live in color. As soon as I'm off, I need to go into myself because, dear God, sensory overload. So I went to my boss and I'm like, hey, I would like to be a project manager. I will lead XYZ project. I'll give you 3 years, but I need you to bring in one of the best to teach me how to be a project manager. And then I would love for the organization to pay for my certification. This is how it's good for you. And he said, I think I like this. I had an advocate who advocated for me. She was a mentor of mine. And she, she's like, yes, she, +1, whatever it is that I would, what I was pitching to him. And he said, okay, yeah, let's do it. Brought someone in for 6 months to train me, and it was not easy. But you have to, at some point, there's a poem called Invictus, and the last stanza of the poem is, I'm the master of my fate and the captain of my soul. There has to be some onus from you, the person. This is your story. Do something with it. Intentionally make decisions for it. Like, it's just what it is. This is good. Thank you.
Thank you. This is really good.
It really, really was. So where can the folks find you, stay connected, all the things?
Facebook and Instagram, and I was told I need to get on Twitter, but my handle is @WellRestedJazz. My website is wellrestedworking.com, and you can see all the information. I'm on YouTube too, with my Sisters Siestas. I have a book. There's a lot of workshops that I do, but if you catch me on any of those platforms, you'll catch me, and all the information that I have.
I love it. I love it. Again, I thank you so, so much for sharing space, time, and energy with me. I'm super excited to stay connected and watch you continue to grow and excel while resting. Oh, I love to see it. Thank you so much for your gems. And I cannot wait. You guys can stay connected with me everywhere on all the platforms at Alechia Reese. And then if you want more information about the work that we are doing, head to rgopgroup.com. Until next time, bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Got Value podcast. Remember, there is true value in purpose, and the greatest discovery of your life will be exactly what yours is. Stay connected with us at gotvaluenation.com.